Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We are at property address 695 North Juniper Street here in Canby. I describe everything as if you're facing the front door from the street. So we're off to the right of the front doorway. If you go right to the fence gate there, that's the front door. You got a 3-inch ABS cleanout sticking out of the ground here. This one's sticking up far enough that you shouldn't hopefully lose track of it ever. So anyway, we're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water is, or actually we're going to have water running here in a moment. I can tell dropping in here, someone certainly likes to cook bacon in the house. There is a bit of bacon grease, or some kind of grease anyway. It's definitely the place you want to come to for Sunday dinner. Anyway, we're going to get some water put down line here in just a moment. We'll get a nicer, clearer image of what's going on here. Anyway, grease buildup is one of those things. I've been doing this. I've been scoping lines now for 13 years. I've cambered almost 25,000 sewer lines, cleaned thousands of lines, repaired plenty. Grease buildup is one of those things that is, I'm honestly a lot more concerned about it at this point in my career than a lot of structural issues. We just swapped over there to 3034 PVC, 4-inch diameter. Now we are into standard PVC. Anyway, the amount of grease there right out of the gate, honestly, not a massive amount of it. It takes very little when I don't have continuous water flow to gunk the camera lens up. I mostly point it out for educational purposes, especially if you're a new homeowner. Ooh, this thing's a tiny little sewer line. 30 feet. It's about half the length of the average line out there. Just wonderful. It means you have half the amount of pipe there to worry about having problems. It also means you get a nice good hard slope on the line too when you're grading the line this short. Anyway, especially for the new homeowners out there and or ones with little kids in the house that have never really learned this, cooking oil, fats in general going down your kitchen sink drain is plays a great deal into why a lot of lines out there get blockages. It causes a lot of stuff that would otherwise make its way from A to B to get hung up. Makes it much more likely when the occasional improper items do go down line and or big balled up toilet paper like kids like to flush, causes that stuff to get stuck in the line, and it causes very stubborn blockages when blockages do happen. They're a lot less likely to break loose on their own. So anyway, we'll give it another look over as we come back in here, but that is not a terribly thick layer of grease, but we'll see how it looks here. As for the line itself looks great. At worst here, I may recommend some cleaning, but I generally only do that when you get to the point of having about a 1/4 inch thick layer of it throughout the line continuously. When it's subtle and thin, my camera often breaks a bit of it loose anyway, but it's at a point where you can help to mitigate any further buildup just by living habits. And you can keep a line spiffy, shiny clean if you mind that one habit by and large, just not putting cooking oil down the line. So anyway, we're going to go locate here really quick just to verify where the line terminates. It looks like it pretty much does a straight shot right to the road. All right, located the camera head successfully. Does a straight shot out to Juniper Street, or North Juniper Street. Actually pretty rare you get a line that runs this straight and this short. All right, start pulling in here. Little interesting fun fact about grease buildup. Probably don't care to hear it, but I'll tell you anyway. Counter to kind of what you'd think, the steeper slope there, you notice at the end of the line, it's an interesting phenomenon with grease. You can see how the grease looks here. It's very minimal. There's hardly any right here. Then you hit this hard vertical dive, and the grease thickens up considerably. I mean, you probably got 3 to 4 times more grease right there than you do up here in the flatter part of the line. The steeper the line is, or the steeper the portion of the line is anyway, the more grease buildup you'll get. Reason for that, cooking oil, fats in general, as they cool down, become thicker and thicker, more viscous, and they move slower. Whereas water doesn't have that problem. So when you have that nice hot water helping to melt and emulsify the grease, it starts to outrun everything on those hard slopes. The water's cruising much faster than the grease, and it starts to leave it behind. You also have the coupling effect of the grease cooling more and more as it makes its way further down line on the outside. This pipe is buried underground, it's cold all the time. All the PVC pipe looks great, both the green and white. Joints are tight, drains off beautifully, zero issues there. So anyway, when you get a hard slope like that, it's kind of remarkable. You can end up with considerably more grease buildup in those locations. It also is less concerning too because of the steepness of the line, but it's just kind of an interesting phenomenon. Here too, a little bit thicker there, a little more continuous, but anyway, this is not at a point here, not that it wouldn't hurt things to clean it, but it's not at a point where it's going to be causing blockages. That right there might cause something that's already going to block a little bit more effectively, but it's too thin to do anything on its own. I mostly just pointed out for educational purposes, something you want to try to avoid putting down the line. And my camera's a little gunked right now, but we're going backwards. No standing water going to the foundation wall. Nothing like that. One thing I always like to take a look at here, this is where you can end up with thicker grease on the inside, depending on how people wash their dishes. I can tell a lot about a house and how their grease buildup develops. You have some homes where they're very, very anal about always using hot water, and some homes don't care. They'll use cold water. Cold water houses, most of the grease will build up on the inside of the home because it's cooling down rapidly. And you'll get some on the exterior, then it disappears pretty quick. Where your hot water homes, the inside of the house will often look like no grease has ever gone down the line, and it all builds up on the outside where everything starts to cool down. So this is a home here that you've got, you know, fairly consistent grease throughout. But best thing you can do to help mitigate buildup, and my camera just busted up a lot of that stuff going through there. Much of that's going to break loose on its own naturally with water flow. Kind of the rule of thumb I tell most people to live by. It helps mitigate most everything. If you've got enough oil or grease on your pans that when you turn that pan sideways, it runs off the pan or flows off of it, it's at that point you want to do something about it. Wipe your pans out after they cool down with a paper towel, or scrape it off into a garbage can. Make sure it's cool first, and or pour it into a jar when it's still in a liquid state. You just want to keep it from going down the line. It's when you've got quantity is where it gets you. If you know some level of it's getting down the line, obviously always use hot water, always use soap, but keep your hot water running for a full minute longer than your last dish was scrubbed off. That helps to ensure that anything that did get down the line remains melted and emulsified until it gets out to the main lateral, or at least a good distance from the home. When you shut your water off really quickly, all that hot water that was with that grease cools down rapidly, and often doesn't make as big a difference as you were hoping it would. So anyway, good looking line here, zero structural defects, has good slope and grade throughout, no bellies, offset joints, roots, anything of the sort. A little bit of grease buildup in there, but in my opinion, not thick enough to justify a hydrojet. It's just not terribly concerning. It wouldn't hurt anything to do so, but not at a point there where it's going to go having some major detrimental effect to flow. Pretty minor stuff as it sits. Just keep those habits in place, and honestly, you know, if you're not putting more grease down the line, you're running plenty of hot water through the pipe, stuff like that, a lot of that will slough off on its own there. Anyhow, sewer line is functioning properly at this time.